Hello, everybody, and welcome to ArtStream. My name is Miss Andrea, and we're going to do a second lesson to the Exploring the Renaissance Through Elements of Drawing and Design. Today, we are going to talk about shading and value. So before we get started, I want you to gather your materials. You're going to need a piece of paper, clean sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11 is preferable, a pencil, erasers, either at the end of your pencil or extra erasers, and preferably a ruler, but another type of straight edge that you might have laying around the house. And you also want to make sure that you work on a clean, flat surface. And we're also going to be doing drawing from life today. So if you can, why don't you grab an item from the kitchen, like a cup or a bowl. This is a cup that I made because I'm also a ceramic artist. And we'll get started. As you're gathering your materials, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the connection between shading and value and the Renaissance. In the Renaissance, the Renaissance artists started using shading to create more of a dramatic look in paintings and drawings, and particularly with folds in drapery or clothing, or sometimes in facial features, just creating shadows to create a type of mood. So that's the connection to the Renaissance. Remember, Renaissance is a 35-year period from 1490 on that was an exploration or kind of like a rebirth, literally a rebirth, Renaissance, rebirth in French. And it was a time where art and culture and architecture and philosophy came to be very, very important. So we are going to start by creating a value continuum. And I'm going to start by first showing you what I mean, and then I'll take you through the steps of creating one. So here we have a value continuum with darkest to lightest, and we're gonna create 10 different values. Okay, the darkest value and the lightest value, and then what is all in between is what is known as the continuum. So each little step gets a little bit lighter, all the way to the brightest, which is going to be white. So we're going to start by making our own continuum. The reason why it's helpful to have all this continuum sort of laid out, kind of like a strip here, is because it will really help when you're doing your drawings to use as many different values in a shade. Okay, so when you talk about value, we're talking about the light to dark or dark to light. Okay, so having this here will really help make the drawing more interesting by providing reference to 10 different values. All right, so that's why we do that. So we're going to do that by, you're going to take your paper and you're going to put it so that it's landscape. Landscape means horizontal. And you're going to fold up about, you don't need to measure. You can just estimate about an inch and a half. So just take that bottom edge, go ahead and fold it. Okay. And then you're going to take your ruler, if you've got one, and you want to probably want to start about 1/4 inch in. And if you don't have a ruler, you can just approximate. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be exact, but you want to make little 1-inch notches or lines, crosshatch lines here on each inch, all the way up to 10. Okay. And each one is going to be a section for you to put your value. So I'm going to actually use darker lines so you all can see. It's a little bit hard to see. So I'm going to raise it up. You see how I'm putting lines? Once I made the little notches, I'm going to go make lines. You don't probably want them to be too dark, but this is going to tell me where each value is going to go. Okay, so this here is going to be my darkest value, and this here is going to be my lightest value. Okay, so I know that this drawing did it with 0 being the darkest. I kind of like the idea of light being the 0. So we're going to start with this one here. this is going to be all white, so you're not going to do anything with this. This is going to be left blank. And then I find it's helpful to do the last one next by just filling it in as dark and as deep as you can with your pencil. So just go ahead and fill that in, going back and forth and side to side to give you your darkest value. We're going to call that 10. Now, when you're doing something dark, you probably already know that you're going to press harder on the pencil than you would if you were pressing for doing a light section. And the other tip is going to be to make sure that your lines are pretty close together. They're going to overlap and they're going to be very dense. So you're going to just make it dark by doing lots of dense lines and also pressing hard on your pencil. Okay. All right. So once you've got that, it's going to be easier to do the second one with just a little bit less pressure on the pencil and with a little bit more space in between the lines. Okay, it's going to be a very subtle difference, but you get the idea. Okay, so just keep working on your continuum, because this is going to help you with the drawings, the 2 drawing activities that we're going to do next. Okay, so one more time, let's take a look at the example, the finished example. And it's just a very gradual change in what we call value, okay? So go ahead and maybe spend another little bit of time working on that, and then we're going to switch to the next activity. If you don't get finished with this, and it's likely that you won't because I didn't, don't sweat it. There is you can always go back and watch the video again or pause the video again when it's when you get the recording, and you can take your time with this. Okay, so just kind of finish that up, and then we're going to move on in 1 minute. Just keep working. You don't have to finish it up right this second. You're just going for a gradual change in value. Okay, and this is going to help you later. All right, finish up what you're doing. We're going to transition to another activity in 30 seconds. And you can go ahead and stop for now. Okay. All right. So we're going to ideally, when this is done, you're going to use your value continuum to help you when you are shading 2 different drawing activities. Okay. So for now, like last week, we're going to create 2 different fields of view. All right. So you're going to hold your paper and you're going to hold it landscape. And then you're just going to make the corners touch, and you're going to put a small crease in here. Okay. This small crease is going to give you 2 different fields of view. Fields of view is where your image is going to be, your drawing or image. Okay. So you can either just fold it back to make it easier to focus on one field of view at a time, or you could leave it flat open. It's up to you. Also notice that even though it's folded, you still have the option of whether it's going to be portrait or landscape. Okay, so that's an artistic decision that you can make all on your own. All righty, so now we're going to move on to a drawing activity that is going to be shading using the cross-hatching technique. Okay, so just to give you an idea about what cross-hatching looks like, I'm going to show you an example. This is shading that's done with a cross line, which is one way side to side. And then the cross hatching, the hatch is going in the opposite direction, kind of like a checkerboard, but with the lines much, much closer together than a checkerboard. And hopefully you can see from that example. Okay, That's a way we use to shade, cross-hatching. So the first thing you want to do is identify where the light is, okay? So if you identify where the light is, you want the place where it's the lightest to be on your continuum. You want it to be the lightest color, okay? So that's going to mean no shading whatsoever, okay? Once you identify the light parts, you can go back and create shading, and you're going to use as many values from your continuum. So actually, if we're going to be using your continuum, it is probably a better idea to keep your paper open so that your continuum can kind of help you match shades so that you can have a variety of values in your drawing. Alrighty, so here is another example of cross-hatching. Pair of lips, okay? Two different styles of cross-hatching. One's pretty rough, one's a little bit more smooth. The important thing to remember about cross-hatching is not just that it is going to be a way of shading, but you're actually going to move with the contour of the drawing. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the line, okay? Just the line. So if you take a look here, the lips, and of course you can draw anything you want. You don't have to draw lips. You can draw a simple object either from memory or from real life, something that you have around the house. The important thing is to get practice doing the shading part, so it doesn't have to be super detailed, okay? And any details that you don't get to during the course of this live stream, again, feel free to come back to the recorded video and pause it and just work at your own pace step by step. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna do is create the line. So for me, I've created my line already. And I drew it, it's kind of hard to see when it's with a light pencil, but when you start drawing your simple line drawing, you want to make sure that you are going lightly at first. It's kind of like sketching it out. The reason why you want to go lightly is because if you make a mistake, then you can get your eraser and erase it without any residual or distracting lines being left behind, okay? So always start by sketching it out with a nice light line, and then you can go and draw a darker line over top once you like what the sketch looks like. Okay, it's got your line, got your continuum, and now you can start to shade using cross-hatching. So first things first, I want to identify where the light is. There's like an area in here where the light is. So I'm going to just draw like a little border line. And then there's an area here which tends to be light as well. So I'm going to make a little line so that I'm not going to be putting any shade marks there because I want it to be the lightest value, which is actually white. And then working with the contour of the line, right? The contour is basically you're going to follow it. You're going to start with what we call, I guess we call this hatching, okay? Now, just like when you were doing your continuum, the closer the lines are together and the harder you press on your pencil, the darker the lines will be. Okay, so you're going to start by doing, maybe you want to start by doing a light value and then a dark value. I find that works pretty well. Now that cross-hatching is going over these lines that you've made in the opposite direction, okay? And if you move with the contour of the drawing, the contour with lips is going to mostly be round, right? So you want to make sure that those lines that you're cross-hatching with follows that contour. Okay? All right, so keep working. Use that continuum. Take a moment to look at it and see how you can get different values. Okay, and then we're going to move on in 1 minute to the next shading lesson. And you can always pause this when it's a recorded version and spend much more time on working on your shading. Okay, and it's time to move on, but do come back so you can really take your time with working on shading. We're going to keep our continuum handy. And now we're going to use, we're going to move on to a type of shading called stipple or pointillism. We're not going to take the time to do a pointillism or stipple scale or continuum, but I do want to show you one so that you can get an idea as to what it means. So stipple or pointillism is when you use little dots, the repetition of little dots to shade, okay? So as you can see here, this is like and if it were me making this scale or continuum, I would have a box with absolutely no dots at all, because that's how you get white, is to have no dots whatsoever. And then as you want to move from light to dark, you would just put more dots in an area, and you put those dots closer together, as you can see in this gradient scale or continuum, okay? So stipple is lots of little dots that help shade. All righty, so here is a very simple example of a heart, okay? And you probably don't want to do a super huge drawing, because doing all these little dots takes time, and it can be, you know, it can be very meditative. Some people would interpret it as meditative. Others might find it tedious. So if you're one of those people who find that it's tedious, then you want to do a really small drawing and just get a feel for practicing of shading. This is simple and easy, and you can see that the concentrated areas in the center are more deeply or densely concentrated dots, while it moves out to the exterior of the heart with the dots going farther and farther apart. This is simple, but it gives dimension to it because you have shaded, okay? All right, so go ahead and take your field of view from before. It's going to be the other side of your crosshatch drawing, okay? And you're going to draw a simple shape. I brought my mug from home, so I did my mug. Again, you can do whatever you want as long as it's simple, and you can do it from life, or which means looking at an object and drawing it to the best of your ability, or you can just simply do it from your memory, okay? Once you've got that simple drawing, you're going to look at your continuum or your value chart so that you can put as many different values onto your drawing as possible to make it much more interesting by having a lot of different, values, which is basically a variety of dark and light, okay? So with stipple, you want to identify where the light source is. I'm going to have my light source coming from here, which means I'm going to leave this whole area, I'm going to leave that white. So I'm going to mark that slightly. I don't want to mark it too deep because I don't want it to show. I want to do dots. And then when you move from dark to light, you're going to start with dots that are kind of far apart. Okay, so you're just going to start by dotting. And if you find that it's hard to do with a pencil, then I encourage you to try doing this with a Sharpie, like a fine tip, or even a black Sharpie would be a good way to go to create a lot of little dots. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that I've gotten started with some dots to start the shading, okay? And here is an example of a finished piece. Here you can see that the light source, it looks like for this one, the light is coming straight on, okay? Because the lightened area is right here in the front and a little bit to the side. And then the nice shadow that is falling here. You can see a more concentrated densely concentrated dotting going on here. And if you really look close and careful, and we're going to talk about this more next class, is there is a white line next to a dark line, which really makes it stand out and really makes it interesting and powerful. Okay, so that is what we call stipple or pointillism. And I think it's a lot of fun, and it does take a bunch of time. So again, don't feel at all pressured or rushed to shade what you've done so far. Go ahead and keep dotting up your design or drawing, and I'll give you another minute before we have to transition to our closing. And I dropped my pencil. All right, 30 more seconds and we're going to move on. All right. Okay, everybody. So let's do a closing. Would like for everybody to just put their hands in their laps. Go ahead, put your hands in your lap. Take a deep breath. Go ahead and close your eyes. Feel free to breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Just sit up as straight as you can and feel a calm come over your body. I want you to take just a moment to reflect on your experience of doing this lesson with me today. I want you to take another deep breath and open your eyes and take a moment to look at what you've created and take time to appreciate it. Maybe scan over it and just ask yourself, what else can I do to incorporate what I learned today in this lesson? And just really take the time to appreciate what you have actually done. And thank you so much for joining us. Again, my name is Miss Andrea, and this is ArtStream with Lane Arts Council. I look forward to seeing you again, and just tune in next time. Thank you. Bye.